Basically, as soon as the season's over, draft season gets started. I'll be at the NFL Scouting Combine next week as draft season really kicks into gear. Can't wait for that. And with draft season comes mock draft season. Now, you can go crazy with mock drafts. You can convince yourself that a player that never should be available is going to be available to you via mock draft, and you can really change your perspective. But what if I told you Daniel Jeremiah's NFL.com mock draft 2.0 had the perfect pick for the Houston Texans? What if I told you this player was perfect for the Houston Texans in every way, with one very clear caveat? We'll talk about the player here in a moment, but what's the caveat? Well, the Houston Texans have to get better on the offensive line. The Texans have every offensive lineman from last year who played significant snaps, with the exception of Kendrick Green coming back. That doesn't mean that they can't add to the offensive line room. I prefer a new right guard for the Texans, a veteran who's played a little football, not too much. Move on from Shaq Mason, plop that veteran in there at right guard, and have him help out second-year right tackle Blake Fisher. Obviously, Laramie Tunsil's holding down left tackle. And then you've got Titus Howard, Jared Patterson, Juice Scruggs, Nick Broker, and maybe some other free agents that can all battle it out for center and left guard. So the Texans, that offensive line just got to get better, and I believe in a veteran as the way to get it better. And I know Nick Caley's offense is going to help out a lot. Hopefully has a better blocking scheme, easier for the players to understand and execute, but they've got to get better, and they've got to add talent to that room as well. And just because you add a free agent doesn't mean that second or third or fourth round, you wouldn't go add another offensive lineman via the draft. But this perfect pick, it's only perfect if the Texans make that offensive line improvement. They can't allow CJ Stroud to get sacked as many times as he was sacked last year. They can't allow the constant pressure on CJ Stroud like they allowed last year. The pressure rate that Mahomes dealt with in the Super Bowl was basically CJ Stroud's pressure rate every week of the regular season. That can't happen. So fix the offensive line with the new scheme and a free agent investment, and then draft this player and make him the perfect draft pick at 25 overall. Who is it? Well, let's get to the mock draft. Hey, the Tennessee Titans drafted Penn State defensive lineman Abdul Carter. Good thing in this scenario, the Texans have invested in their offensive line. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, they selected a defensive tackle from Michigan, Mason Graham. Big, nasty guy. Good thing in this scenario, the Texans already invested in their offensive line. Speaking of investing in the offensive line, Armand Mimbu from Missouri goes to the Colts. Probably a right tackle, maybe a right guard. Daniel Jeremiah thinks that he could play right guard right away for the Indianapolis Colts. Well, he's not available for the Texans. That's okay. They already invested in their offensive line. So who's the player, Cody? Get to 25 already. Well, I can't scroll too fast or I'll go past his name. And his name is Emeka Egbuka from the Ohio State University, wide receiver. He is fantastic, and he would be the perfect pick for the Houston Texans if they have already invested in their offensive line. Let's talk a little bit more about Egbuka and what makes him such a perfect selection for the Houston Texans. So he goes to Ohio State as the number one wide receiver in the country. Doesn't get a senior year because of COVID. Enrolls at Ohio State early, and then as a freshman, doesn't really play that much. Only plays in about 3 games. And then the next 3 years, Egbuka went to work, becoming one of the most productive players in the history of the Ohio State University. He finished as the all-time Ohio State receptions and yards leader. Only 20 players have ever attended Ohio State and scored more touchdowns than Emeka Egbuka. He's going to be 23 years old his rookie year, coming off of 81 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and 10 touchdowns for the Buckeyes his senior season. Egbuka probably could have come out after his junior year, after 3 years at Ohio State, 2 playing years, and he probably would have been a day 2 pick. He's squarely in the day 1 discussion. It'd be a shocker if he lasts till day 2 in this year's draft because he does so many things well. He is a versatile, trustworthy wide receiver for an offense that needs a versatile, trustworthy wide receiver. Egbuka can play inside. Egbuka can play outside. He can win against man. He's one of the best man wide receivers, man defense beater wide receivers in college football this past season. He can win against zones. He blocks exceptionally well for a wide receiver. He does the dirty work. He's a smart player. He got a Jackson Smith-Njigba, his former teammate, ironically, comp from Daniel Jeremiah as a guy that can help you outside and as a big-time weapon on the inside. Another thing that makes Egbuka really attractive, it doesn't matter what you've done at wide receiver prior to drafting him because it allows you to do things with your wide receiver room because of his versatility that if you already got a slot guy, he can play outside. If you already got an outside guy, he can play inside. If you got a guy that can do both, then you're mixing and matching and having all sorts of fun if you're offensive coordinator Nick Caley. I love Egbuka as the pick at 25 for the Houston Texans if they've already made that offensive line investment via free agency or hell, even a trade, but improved the talent in the wide receiver room. And it allows the Texans to go out there and not be pigeonholed in the 2nd or 3rd round trying to find a wide receiver because more than likely you've already made a free agent investment at wide receiver, and now adding Egbuka rounds out what should be your top 3 wide receivers. The more I read about him, the more I learn about Egbuka, I just really believe he could be the perfect pick at 25. I even love finding out that he's nearly a scratch golfer. Got a 6.6 handicap. For you golf folks, you probably know a lot more about that than I do, but then said golf has helped his mentality and his approach to football because he gets upset, angry with himself in golf, and he knows he's got to control that. It's helped his football approach as well. And again, super productive at Ohio State and productive this past season after a quarterback change. He got a brand new quarterback this year. He was productive with him. He's not a superstar, okay? Egbuka's probably never going to be the best wide receiver on his team. That's fine. He doesn't need to be the best wide receiver on the Houston Texans. He just needs to come in and be productive and trustworthy right away. Did I mention that he barely was ever hurt at Ohio State? He got hurt for 3 games in the middle of his junior year, had a surgery, and was back on the field in less than 3 weeks after the surgery. I mean, just incredible stuff from Egbuka at the Ohio State University against some big-time competition in the Big Ten. He, to me, is the perfect pick if the Texans, there's the big if the Texans have improved their talent in the offensive line room. If they haven't, well, then erase it. Not the perfect pick. There's a lot of different ways you could go with 25 overall. But I like Egbuka so much, I'd sign up for him as like a guarantee. Like if a genie showed up and was like, I'm guaranteeing you a scenario that is pretty realistic. Which one do you want to guarantee? I'd sign up for Egbuka being the 25th overall pick in the NFL draft and being selected by the Houston Texans. What say you? Have I sold you on Mr. Perfect? Shout out Kurt Hennig. Emeka Egbuka, or you feel like there's a much better scenario for the Houston Texans? Let me know in the comment section down below. On your way down there, throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to subscribe to the SNL channel. Myself and Landry Locker did our first combo mock draft where we went out and tried to find some offensive fixes for the Houston Texans. So check that out on the SNL channel. Subscribe to that channel so you don't miss anything. Myself and Landry Locker from the locker room. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And I can't wait till we talk Texans and some more draft again soon.